This is Matt from Big Monster Brewing, and this is the second half of the Ogre Old Ale, starting with the propagation of the additional yeast that we may or may not need. We're going to find out here shortly, and ending with the tasting. So, without further ado, let's get on to part 2 right now. Somewhat surprisingly, actually, I will say surprisingly, I'm not entirely sure if I will need to add that additional pitch, because here is the beer fermenting. This is the old ale. We are 3 days, almost 3 full days from brew day. It took almost 36 hours for it to really get going, but once it did, and it's attenuating nicely. In fact, let's see if we can see, can't really see the activity, but I can hear the activity. I can hear the bubbles going in that blow-off tube. So I'm going to keep a real eye on it. See what it drops to. I might have to, I might not, I'm not sure. So either way, with this yeast starter, I'm going to make quick. I'm going to make enough to get some in some vials for later use, because I had some already, hadn't even bottled this yet, and I already have some more ideas on the next version of the old ale that I kind of want to get to sooner than later. So I'm going to need more yeast anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and propagate some of that 728 yeast that I have banked. And to do that, if you've ever done a yeast starter or have seen a yeast starter being done, it's basically the same process, just on a much smaller scale. So in this case, I'm going to try to make about 100 milliliter yeast starter. You can see I have more water in there for the compensate for the boil off. It'll probably be a little more than 100 milliliters. But even at that, it's way more than I need, because I'm just going to be filling one of these test tubes and trying to boil just the amount that would go in here is tedious at best. I'm not even sure how to go about it and do it right. So this, I've done this amount for making yeast slant. So I'm going to do the same thing. It is a little bit of a waste, but it's not so much that if I was doing like a liter, obviously that's 10 times as much. So right now I'm heating up the water. I'm going to add 10 grams of Pilsen DME and then boil that off for about 5 minutes. 10 minutes is what I do for a liter, but with this small amount, 5 minutes should be good enough, especially with just the teeny tiny amount we're gonna have it here. And then I'll have to do what would be the equivalent of pitching that pouch of yeast, but again, on a much smaller scale. But let's get the DME going first and get the wort for our starter, and then we'll get to the yeast soon enough. We got the DME in, which was a tedious process, getting it into that little opening while the steam was rolling off. That is such a pain. If you ever worked with dry malt extract, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to sit here, let it boil every once in a while. I'm going to stir it up like this with this handy silicone grill glove so I don't burn myself. To, like I just said, shake it up to make sure it doesn't, that some of that hasn't quite dissolved is laying on top of that burner and scorching. And once this gets to a boil, I'll let it go. Like I said earlier, about 5 minutes. One thing you really got to be aware of when using these small flasks directly on a burner, it will boil over at one point, and you just got to be aware of it. Usually just grabbing it and lifting it takes care of it. But once you see the bubbles reach about here, that's when I do it, because after that, it's all over. It just will pop. Those bubbles will just pop right out, and you will get a boil over. Not to the extent of a beer boil, but still something you don't want to clean up if it hits the wrong place. And now we've got it in this teeny tiny little ice bath. And I'm going to try this next time. I should have used the crush setting on the ice out of the freezer, but this will do the job. This will get it done. We're going to get this cooled down to pitching temperature. All right, so this is definitely cooled to pitching temperature. I'm just going to leave it in the ice bath. It'll help settle out the hot break that's still left in there, or the proteins from the hot break that's still in there. I have this all set up on a tripod because I need both hands, but I wanted to show what's going on. So apologies for this really weird camera angle. So what I'm going to do is just get a teeny tiny sample in our test tube here. So to do that, let's see if I can get this without dripping sanitizer all over the place. I have this syringe with a tube I put on the end, and this has all been in sanitizer except my hand, so now I got to put it back in there again because I just touched it. So I'm going to draw a decent sample, way more than I need. That way I can kind of purge the tube a little bit of sanitizer and then get the sample we need into the test tube. So I'm going to actually put this back in the sanitizer and do a time jump edit and get to it. So here we go. I'm going to draw some of the wort here. And if you're wondering if the sound sounds muffled, there's nothing wrong with your speakers. I'm actually wearing a surgical mask because I usually don't talk while doing this. So I wanted to make sure I don't actually spit into this in any point. Collecting the wort. I get some more. Collecting the wort. We get the yeast. At any point, get my saliva stuck in there and get some really off flavors, I would imagine. I've never actually tested my saliva for profile. Now I'm off camera. I'm purging out some of the air in this. I'm not going to get it all, but I got enough. So I'm going to now inject this wort into the test tube. And we're going to leave a little bit of headspace for the yeast propagation. There we go. That's almost exactly what I need. Actually, it's a little much, I think. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little much. So, well, not that I'm saving this wort, but let's pour it in there. Okay, that's good. That's a good start. I have a sanitized cap here, so I'm going to cap this off loosely. Now we need to get some yeast in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my wort, and you probably might recognize there's a little more in there than in the last camera shot. When I really looked at it, I realized that was too much headspace. So I just grabbed a pipette quick and topped it off. I think I actually topped it off to where it was before. That's usually how it goes with me. My yeast, here is my slant of the 1728 by Y Yeast. It's a little foggy. Let's see if you can see. There we go. You can see we got some nice colonies in there. We got a lot too. Wow, autofocus does not like microbiology. I think I have to tap the screen. There we go. You can see the nice colonies. We're going to grab some of that. That's basically it's where our yeast pouch is going to come from, our equivalent of the yeast pouch. Our yeast pouch is basically going to be this inoculation loop. We're going to grab some of those colonies and then shake it off in that test tube of wort we made to this. This is basically going to be the yeast pouch that we're pitching. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave the camera running. I'm not going to be able to look at the screen too much because I want to make sure I can see what I'm doing. So hopefully this all gets in shot. And first thing I'm going to do is light my burner. This burner has this fuel inside here is a denatured alcohol. So no fumes, no flavors, no anything. I've turned the air conditioner off so we don't have any air flowing around in here. So we're going to have a nice sanitary area here, and plus we're actually going to have to flame sanitize this loop as well. So first thing I want to do, I want to get as much as I can done. So I have this taped with electrical tape. This is the actual yeast to cut it off to air seal it. So let me take that tape off, and we're just going to retape it. I have plenty of electrical tape. I'm going to kind of loosen the cap so I'm not fiddling with this too much. So all this can be done as quick as possible. I'm going to also open up the cap there. That was our wort. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is definitely, I think, out of camera. I'm flaming the loop. There, I can bring this closer to do this. You can see it turning super hot red. That's definitely sanitized. So I want to stay in this general area without being directly in the heat, except for when I flame these openings to sanitize them. And I'm going to grab, first I'm going to lay this loop against parts of the tube that don't have yeast to cool it off. And I'm going to grab a couple of these colonies, both sides. That's probably plenty, but I'm going to grab this big one too. Flame that again, flame it again. I'll tighten that off. I'll flame this and flame that. And now this is the easy part compared to what we just did. Just gonna shake that off in there best I can. I'm gonna make sure all that yeast comes off. So shake, shake, shake. It's probably all off by now, but let's just make sure. There we go. Let's flame these quick. I was right over the heat with my fingers, not the test tube, so it hurt. So that is hand tightened. I should show you. That's hand tightened because we're gonna get some O2 out of there if the yeast works all right. This, I'm going to go ahead and fully tighten that down. This is the yeast samples. As you can see, we got plenty more to do more later. And I'm going to put the tape back on there. And I need to put this out, but I have a surgical mask on, so I'm going to do that off camera. I'm just going to leave it back here at room temperature for the next 2 days, and pretty much every time I walk past it, I'm going to pick it up, give it a little shake like that, put it back. In about 48 hours, it should be white and cloudy like a yeast starter if everything goes well, if those yeasts are viable, which they certainly appeared to be, but the way to find out is to go ahead and try to propagate them. And then I'm going to take that little flask that we saw to make that starter and make a pitch out of that. I think I do have a stir bar small enough for that, so I might even stir it. So in 36 hours, we should have another pitch of yeast to put in that old ale if we need it. If we don't, then I will probably separate what is in that pitch in the vials. I might even do a yeast count on it. Yeast counting, I have the microscope. I have the name escapes me. It's got like hemo in it. The counter for the little slide to count cells. I have all that. If I do have to count this yeast, I won't cover that in this episode. Counting yeast and propagating yeast and doing all those kinds of things are things I'm planning to do, and they are episodes of themselves. And this one's probably already going a little long with a lot of the background and things we had to stop and do to make this beer. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this. I might grab some footage again after that 48 hours to see what the liquid inside that test tube looks like. All right, it's actually been 3 days because, life just got in the way. As you can see, there's quite a bit of yeast settled on the bottom. You can also see the headspace went away. That is not from this yeast propagating. That's from me shaking it up like this to kind of gauge where the yeast was at. Actually, wow, it's actually really consolidated down there. But anyway, shaking it up and then immediately opening it and having it just almost explode without shattering anything right off the top. But some got on my finger. Actually, a lot got on my finger. I was like, well, you know what? Since it's already out in the open, why don't I give it a taste? And it tasted like beer. So I knew the yeast was fermenting. So I'm going to give this a good off-camera shake and then get another yeast starter going. I didn't show the whole process for time's sake, but I made a quick 400 milliliter starter, 400 milliliters of water, 40 grams of Pilsen dry malt extract, and then I pitched that yeast, that little test tube of yeast, and this is about 25 minutes later. I didn't film right away because I thought the bubbles and whatnot was from the star sand and the shaking up the yeast, but I don't think so. I think this is some seriously hungry yeast. So this should be attenuated out by this time tomorrow, no problem. And I'll be able to get 4 vials out of 400 milliliters. And I should probably do a yeast count on one. Probably will not be in this video because this one has already gone long. I might even have to split it into 2. But I'm definitely going to do that because I think I got some healthy yeast going here. So there are my 8 bottles of old ale. I didn't film the bottling. I don't really film many bottlings because it's pretty straightforward. If you're watching and you'd like a more detailed video on bottling, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm happy to do it. I just figured you've seen it once, you don't need to see it every video. So gonna let these condition. Shouldn't take too long because this doesn't have as much sugar or carbonation as most of the beers, in fact as the ones back there, and are sharing the box with it. Well, you know what I'm saying. First month of the old ale, which I just realized I put everything off camera. There we go. Well, I'm not framed up real well. I'll tell you right now, I got a busy day. It's 9:20 in the morning. I'm about to have a beer, and I have one brewing out there. So, full disclosure for this tasting. But, like I said, first month of the old ale, 30 days. I am going to be tasting this over many days. This particular video is going to end with this tasting. But this is one I'm going to check out over time because I don't think I'm going to get a true idea of where this old ale recipe is going on the first taste, but maybe not, or maybe so, or I should have just said maybe. So let's get to the first tasting, 1 month old, 30 days ago today. I brewed this beer. We should have a little hiss, but not a whole lot. That's average hiss. I guess it's the pressure under there. This is going to be lightly carbonated. This is not going to be like the California Common, where it's flat on by accident. It's going to be sort of flat on purpose because this is a very lightly carbonated beer by style. And there you can see it's not even really forming a head, and I wasn't expecting it to, and I didn't add sugar, the amount of sugar to actually get a huge head. I want it to be lightly carbonated. I'm going to say right off the bat, color is a little light. I should move the glass out of the way of my face. I don't know what you call this kind of color. Opaque, I guess? It's not hazy. It's not like a hazy IPA. But every old ale I've had has this kind of opaque color to it. I can see through it-ish. Like, I can see there's something blocking it. It's not so dark that it's cutting the light out. But it's definitely not brilliantly clear. And by style, it's not supposed to be. But I don't know what you call this. The carbonation, it's actually rolling off the bottom of the glass is more than I expected, but it's still not, as you can see, not forming a big head, and it's not all that carbonated. But let's get to the aroma. The important parts are going to be the aroma and taste. I'm going to say the first thing I get is a big booziness. I mean, it was bam, alcohol. So let's see if I can get anything through that, because that is actually really strong. I do get a little molasses-like, almost raisin currant aroma, but like I said, it's under that alcohol. The alcohol is really just punching me right in the nose. Yeah, it's got that nice sweet molasses kind of currant, little touch of raisin in there. Not a lot of caramel, which is, I thought with that 120 maybe I'd get a more caramel profile of it than I intended, but I don't seem to, at least not with the aroma. Let's get to the taste. This is what I really want to know about, and then have that base to build on future tastings with. So let's check it out. It's quite rich. There's let me taste that again. It's quite rich. It's got a really young flavor to it for an old ale, which is not a pun. I mean, I can taste that there's going to be some aging to this. I do get that again, the current flavor is coming through. There's definitely a deep, dark burnt sugar flavor to it, which is actually really nice. That little bit of, again, some more raisin, maybe more closer to like a prune. A prune's kind of got more of a stronger flavor to it. Like it's kind of like a juicy raisin, almost overripe raisin with the few prunes that I've had. But it tastes more towards the kind of that prune spectrum, that real thick, rich, raisinish, like on steroids flavor of a plum. Let me taste it again because the flavor's already left. I'm not getting, even though I have that kind of the burnt sugar and that richness to it, I'd like a little more kind of a thicker feel to it. It's not all that, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe that's part of the mouthfeel, part of the flavor. It doesn't feel as viscous as the old ales I've had before. They're not. They're quite, they're not like a glass of syrup, but there is a certain like a viscosity feeling and flavor to it. This doesn't have it yet. It might. I can kind of sense if it's going to have it, what it's going to be like, but it's not there yet. So all in all, not a big surprise that this old ale isn't exactly what I wanted. But it's a good start, and I'm even more curious what this is going to taste like in 60 days and then in 90 days. But that's not going to stop me from making a few more. I actually have already tweaked this recipe and started another recipe. I'm kind of going to do side by sides of the two recipes and see which one I want to continue further on with, because it's a style I had mentioned in the opening of this that I really enjoy and I'd really like to get locked in. So this is almost exactly what I expected. It's got potential. I don't think it's at the age that I should be doing a complete, this is what it tastes like taste. But I think we have an idea of not exactly, but we have an idea of where this is headed and what we can do. But it's one of those beers where time is going to tell. I think in the next two tastings, if I wait 30 days between each one, we're going to get a better idea. Really excited about this project going forward, because it's until I had a couple back to back and then made one of my own, I kind of forgot how much I like an old ale and how much I really want to have kind of a signature old ale of my own. So this has been fun. I hope it's been fun to watch, at least to some regard. I'm definitely going to finish this. I mean, there's nothing I dislike about it. There's just things I like and want to like more and want to add even more to. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this beer, finish the one that I'm boiling right now. Well, I hope it's not boiling. It's probably boiling over. I should wrap this up and check that. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that alarm button so you're notified when the next videos come out. And yeah, I'll say again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.